This video is for fixing your frontside mechanics when sprinting, and we're not going to be showing you a bunch of hip flexor strengthening exercises. We're going to instead go in depth into the running form and technique to make it so you can get a quick fix to improving your frontside mechanics. We're going to break it down into 5 separate steps of your running cycle to make it so you can see immediate improvement and really be able to pinpoint where specifically you have issues in your running cycle that's impacting your frontside mechanics. And if this is your first time seeing one of my videos, my name is Morey and I help athletes in improving their running form and their sprinting form to make it so they can see immediate improvement in their sprinting results. I've been doing this for 10 years now on YouTube as well as in person. And I started off with myself, took myself from like an 18-mile-an-hour sprint to getting over 23 miles an hour on ground. I get about 21 miles an hour on the curve treadmill, which is what I do a lot of my sprint training on. But the main part of this video that I really want to be able to relate to you is just showing you how, from a technical perspective, you can make some very critical changes, and with a few different techniques and some kind of subtle adjustments, a lot of times people can improve by 3, 4, 5 miles an hour. And it's not by working out a lot harder, doing a lot more weight in the gym. Instead, it's going to be very focused on how to improve the frontside mechanics. We're going to go ahead and get right into the 5 different things. And the first one is just going to be getting your hips into the right position, which essentially means trying to tuck your hips forward. If you have an issue with your frontside mechanics, then what's probably happening is your hips are getting too far back, like the crown of your head. And because of that, it makes it so now the time that when your foot comes off the ground and the angle of when your foot comes off the ground is just too far back behind you. Instead, we want to be able to get your hips to be forward and more underneath you to make it so then the foot doesn't get way behind your hip when you toe off. And there's not only one way to run here. There are people that you can see run very fast and have their hips untucked. But if you're watching this video, you're wanting to work on your frontside mechanics, and in order to do that, the first step is going to be being able to have a good tucked position, because just because some other athletes are able to do it, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to be able to do it. So this is just going to be specific to how can you look at yourself running and say, okay, this may be an area that you want to be able to improve. And I do want to say that that's going to be important not only at top speed, but also during your acceleration. In fact, if you lose your hip position during acceleration, then the likelihood of you getting it back at your top speed is basically 0. So it's critical that you get your hips correct from the very first step. And again, you do this by just tucking your hips, making sure that you're able to get your feet to come through as quickly as possible, get your toes up before you strike the ground. The more that your hips become untucked, then the more that foot's going to get stuck back behind you, and you're going to end up lifting the foot rather than driving the foot through, which is a key mistake when it comes to acceleration. Which leads to number 2, which is another critical part of acceleration, which is to get your knees through as soon as the foot crosses the hip. And I know that might sound like it's very complicated, and I'll give you some visual representation to be able to see it. But the main thing that you want to understand with this, I've talked about this in the past, is that as the foot is going back on the ground and your hips are starting to come through, we want to be very quick to stop the process of your knee continuing to fall back. As fast as you can, you want to start driving your knee through, because what that does is it gets that heel to start coming up, and it eliminates extra long foot contact time. The sooner we can get our weight up onto the front part of our toe and get ready for toe off, then the less we're going to lose the foot back behind, and then therefore be able to increase our frontside mechanics. So make sure as the foot hits the ground, we're as quick as we can getting the heel up to make it so then we can drive the knee through as soon as possible and then be able to effectively strike the ground. So the process wants to be, when we strike the ground, we have the weight on the front part of the foot, or we absorb towards the front part of the foot and immediately start to get the heel to come up. We can keep the shin moving forward, and the less amount of movement our knee gets going backwards, the better. Then we'll be able to set ourselves up for a more effective frontside mechanics. Number 3 is going to be, make sure the heel is coming forward and upwards as opposed to upwards and then forward. So now we went through body position. We also went through the foot strike. Now we're talking about when the toe is coming off the ground. So what I commonly see with people that don't have good frontside mechanics is that the foot or the heel will start lifting up off the ground rather than start traveling forward off the ground. And so if you're having a hard time in being able to improve your frontside mechanics, what you have to be able to do is push off the ground better to make it so then your knee is coming forward and your toes are coming forward, your whole leg is cycling forward, as opposed to coming up and then around, or coming up and then forward. And the better relationship you have with being able to push straight forward with the leg will make it so then you can improve your leg cycle. And really, this looks like a B skip as opposed to a butt kick. So when you're running, you really want to be keeping your heel kind of right underneath the hip like you do during a B skip or even maybe like a high knee run, as opposed to people get stuck with like a butt kick type situation where their foot's staying back behind them. And then again, that impacts how well they're able to strike the ground. For reference, when we look at the top sprinters, a lot of times they are spending about 0.33 to 0.36 seconds with their feet off the ground. And the fastest athletes, though, spend about 0.2 of those seconds, so over half, with their foot either underneath their hip or out in front of their hip. As opposed to many athletes who are struggling with their frontside mechanics will spend that same time, over half the amount of time, with their foot either at their hip or behind their hip. And so that's really what the issue ends up being when you break it down to objectively. It's that the foot is not getting enough time out in front. So you don't have a lot of time for your foot to be coming back and up and around and spending all this time, because then when you cycle back through, you don't have an additional amount of time. It's either you spent 0.2 seconds of your 0.33 with your foot behind you, and now you have the rest of it, 0.13 seconds, to now get the foot through and then land, which makes it so now you don't have a lot of force into the ground. Or if you are very quick with your backside mechanics, 0.13 seconds is what the fastest athletes do, and then you spend 0.2 seconds with your foot out in front, now you have the opportunity to get yourself ready for a strong foot strike. So you don't want to be wasting all your time with your foot going back and up. Get your foot through to make it so you can improve that foot strike. And I know I said at the beginning that I'm not going to give you just a bunch of random hip flexor exercises to do, but at this stage, I will say that strengthening your hip flexors could end up helping you in being able to improve this part of your leg cycle. So if you're struggling with keeping your knee height, then a lot of times it's the strength of the hip flexors. I still think it's very much your technique, but having good, strong hip flexors will help with step 4, which is, again, just being able to maintain the height of the knee, because this is going to require not only actually strength of the hip flexors, but also range of motion through the hamstrings, the activation within the hip flexor, as well as the quad, the rectus femoris, and also even the core and the anterior tibialis of the ankle. These are all things that you want to be able to have working at a very high level to be able to have the extension necessary to be able to get the reach that you want to have great frontside mechanics. So essentially, this is when your leg is coming through, we're not trying to lower the foot down. The longer and the higher we can keep the foot up off of the ground as the leg is cycling through, then we're going to have more time and more force into the ground, which is that's essentially what we're trying to do here, is how can we better understand how to generate more force in the ground. That's what frontside mechanics is all about. And so if you can get your foot up longer in front of you, then you're going to be able to generate more force in the ground. The best way to be able to do that is to maintain knee height as that foot is coming through. You don't want to allow your foot to immediately drop down. And that's to get you all set up for number 5, which is an active foot strike. Essentially, everything that we've done through the last 4 steps is to get you to this point where you have your foot or toe up in the air and your toe is really facing up towards the sky the best you can. And now you're going to be able to actively strike the ground coming down and back. That's where you're at top speed when you are first accelerating. We want to be still kind of bringing the foot back, but just having an active foot strike, making it so the ankle has the ability to land more towards the front part of the foot. We don't want to be too stiff with our ankle. We're not actually moving the foot at all before the foot is actually striking the ground. You want to have movement in the ankle and not too much stiffness in the ankle at strike. When your foot strikes, then we want to be able to react and have a lot of stiffness. But prior to foot strike, we want to be active in using the foot to land, not only with the foot going back, but really to make it so we're landing on this specific part of your foot that ends up making it so then you can generate the most amount of force. It's going to be a little bit different for everybody, but generally it's more towards like the ball of the foot, the front inside, where you have that big bone underneath your foot. That's where we want to be landing to really maximize the amount of power that you're able to get into the ground. And this is something that we're constantly trying to reinforce with our athletes, is how to be able to get better at the acceleration, the drive phase, the top end speed, and being able to have the active range within the ankle to effectively and efficiently and consistently strike the ground with the most amount of power, most amount of force. And so as you end up improving within this area, it should be able to reinforce the entirety of these 5 steps to make it so then you are in a never-ending cycle of improvement within your sprinting mechanics. So the better that you're able to strike the ground, or the more active you are with the foot strike, then the better body position you're going to be able to get into, and the better body position that you're in, then you'll be able to have a better foot contact time, and then that will improve your ability to toe off and then cycle the leg correctly. And then as you get better at cycling the leg effectively, then we'll be able to have a better knee drive. As we have a better foot height, then we'll be able to strike the ground more effectively, and then the cycle just continues to get better. So there's no real perfect front side mechanics. I think there's always a opportunity to get more efficient, more effective at being able to strike the ground again, whether it's the start, the drive phase, the top end speed, but it is something that we want to be constantly evolving, constantly working on to make it so then we have a lot of consistency within the foot strike, because that's what ends up being, I think, a big thing when it comes to especially the top sprinters is you want to be able to build up these great frontside mechanics so then you could really rely on them race after race, time after time, and you're not always able to do that if you just don't have that great feel. And the better you can get these 5 steps down or this system down, then the better you'll be able to optimize that feel and continue to run fast. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. If you like the information, click that thumbs up. We offer a lot of great coaching opportunities for you guys. If you want to check that out in the description, we also have some different free workouts and things like that. Again, down in the description. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon.